But too many people want, especially young girls, they want to have baby and then turn around and say, I don't need a man in my life. That's why your wages are staggering. So you run, even women with MDs, MBAs, they run to work, pick up their kid at 6 or 7 from daycare. By the time they get them home and wash and clean and eat and maybe do some homework, it's 8 or 9. They're in bed. It's like a vicious cycle. Women, I want you to hear me loud. You do need a man.
I don't think
Men, we do need women.
I agree with you. I think we need each other for sure. But when we're facing issues like attacks on our rights to control our bodies, then women do find alternative ways to protect their humanity. And that leads me to my last point that I wanted to talk with you, which is the Wisconsin Supreme Court election, which is really going to change politics next year. So let's watch a little bit of that, and then we'll talk about it.
Widely understood to be the most important election of 2023, the Liberal candidate, Judge Janet Protasiewicz, has won the Wisconsin Supreme Court election, defeating the MAGA Alliance candidate, Dan Kelly. This means that the Wisconsin Supreme Court has flipped from 4-3 conservative to 4-3 liberal, giving liberals the majority. And it's really hard to overstate the absolute magnitude of this victory for Democrats, not just for Wisconsin, but for the entire country. Here's why. The court could end up deciding whether Trump succeeds in stealing the 2024 election. It can now undo an 1849 law that bans the right to an abortion, something that Janet Protasiewicz is clearly intent on overturning. It can protect the rights of workers, roll back the worst gerrymander in the country, and even revive Wisconsin's democracy after years of right-wing attacks. So when I say that the consequences of this win are monumental, I absolutely mean it. Consider this. Democrats won 53% of the vote in the Wisconsin State Assembly elections in 2018. Republicans only won 44.6%, but Democrats only got 36 seats while Republicans got 63 seats due to Republican gerrymandering. In fact, Democratic candidates have won 14 of the last 17 statewide elections in Wisconsin, but the Republican Party still controls 67% of the seats in the state Senate and 65% in the Assembly. That's not democracy, that is a rigged system. But with Janet Protasiewicz's win, they now have the power to bring these gerrymandered maps in front of the court and restore fairness to elections.
So you say, okay, you say, wow, so you clearly have a bone to pick there. But wouldn't you say that gerrymandering does hurt our democracy and especially, fair elections, fair and honest elections?
Well, okay, you're smarter than I'll ever be, which is why people say to you, Your Holiness, maybe you can talk me off the ledge here. You have people democratically voting for their state rep, state senator, governor, et cetera, et cetera. How in the world can anyone get on national TV and say, we don't have a democracy? The people spoke. Now, you don't like the results, but the people voted and they spoke. How is that not democracy?
Well, because of the way the districts are drawn.
But it's the law. They obey the law.
No, but you know that they manipulate these lines. You know that there's a lot of politics involved. I mean, New York just went through it. They had hearing after hearing, and to try to some members were basically cut out of their own district. So gerrymandering has been a political tool for a long time. But when you look at this, when you look at Wisconsin and the way they Brian Cohen laid it out, it does look malicious. It does look unfair when.
But wait a minute, are you suggesting to me that if it's the Democrats doing the gerrymandering, i.e. up in New York, it's okay, but if the Republicans gain advantage in Wisconsin like they have, it's not okay? Is that what you're arguing?
No, I'm saying both parties. I'm saying when you look at Wisconsin, when you look at Wisconsin, it's pretty clear how everything is drawn and how people get to vote. And so wouldn't you say that gerrymandering hurts hurts both parties' efforts to improve this country. And talk a little bit about what the Wisconsin Supreme Court election will mean for the presidential election next year, and for some hot topic issues like, uh, women's reproductive rights and so forth.
Well, a couple of things. Number one, the issue of gerrymandering, they obey their state laws. And all these gerrymandered districts throughout the country, they have been upheld by various state courts across the country. So if you don't like gerrymandering, change the law in your state. That's how a democracy operates. You can't just complain and moan and groan when the results don't come out the way you want them, and then it's bad. But as long as it comes out in your favor, whatever that means, then it's okay. So both parties, as you rightfully said, play that game again, but they're playing within the laws of their state. So that doesn't bother me. Now, but isn't it amazing this Supreme Court race last week rather, no, earlier this week.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it amazing that the Democrat who won, she got this funny name, I can't pronounce it, but the Democrat who won, she's already going on record during the campaign saying, I win this seat, I'm reversing these gerrymandered districts. Now, I thought the role of a judge on any level was to hear the facts of the case, look at what the law of the state says, and then make a conclusion based on the facts and the law. She's already told you how she's going to vote. On abortion in Wisconsin, she's already told you how she's going to vote. That is very problematic to me.
Don't you think it's problematic to keep women from making their own decisions about their reproductive rights and their overall health care? That's ultimately more problematic.
No. Let me tell you why. And I've debated a lot of prominent women throughout the country over the past year or so on this issue with the Supreme Court. Number one, again, you're too young to know about this. Brown versus Board of Education, 1954. My godfather was involved in that case. Okay. William C. Coleman, Bill Coleman. He was the first Black Republican to be in a cabinet position for a Republican White House. He was Secretary of Transportation for Gerald Ford, but he was law partners with Thurgood Marshall and a lifetime member of the NAACP, and the list goes on and on and on. And so what the Supreme Court did in Brown versus Board of Education, they basically said Plessy versus Ferguson, which was the predecessor to Brown versus Board of Education. Brown versus Board of Education, for your audience who may be too young to know, basically separate but equal. Right. Prior to that decision, it was okay to have separate and unequal in school under the guise that it was equal. Mm-hmm. And so Brown versus Board of Education. So what the Supreme Court said is Plessy versus Ferguson was wrongly ruled, and we're correcting what the Supreme Court ruled almost 100 years ago. We're correcting their mistake. So last year with the abortion case, mm-hmm. Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court is saying Roe v. Wade back in 1972 was wrongly adjudicated. We're correcting that. So they did nothing to change the legal status of abortion. They're saying if you want abortion in your state, let the people go to the polls and vote up or down, and that becomes the law in your state. But the federal government had no role in telling all the other states how they need to handle this issue of abortion. Now, what did women do pre-Roe v. Wade? Seemed like you all thrived pretty well. No one was talking about men controlling your body. But do you realize in the city of New York, as we speak today, there are more Black babies aborted than are born every year, according to the New York City's own health statistics, not Republican statistics, from New York City's own health statistics. Now, shouldn't that bother all of your listeners?
Well, I mean, that should bother anybody, but no one is saying that they're fighting for their right to necessarily have an abortion. What it is a totality.
But that's what Nancy Pelosi said. That's exactly what she said.
It's one of the reasons why women deserve must have the right to govern their own bodies, period. So whether it is for an abortion or for other types of healthcare, the federal protection went a long way to protect women in states that did not feel that a woman had a right to an abortion or any type of health care. I mean, we're talking about issues of rape, of incest, of fetal defects. I
And
mean,
those are less than 1% of all abortions. That issue is thrown around. It is a negligible, it's a rounding error of the number of instances where a woman is raped and she has the veiled abortion. I think most doctors under those circumstances would give a pass on that. But that's a red herring because the norm is women are using abortion as birth control because they're too daggone lazy to go get a daggone pill or abstinence or rubber or whatever they want to use. But there is no reason for a woman in 2023 to ever be pregnant short of rape unless she chooses to be.
well, but those are the issues that women are facing. And it is a little harsh to say that women are too lazy and to get the pill because, and I know you're being a little facetious there too, but there are certain states that won't even allow you to have the pills. There are certain, rogue people who, hide behind religion and say, no, I'm not going to sell you the a birth control pill. So women are facing more than one obstacle when it comes to having sovereignty over their own healthcare. And this is not a new issue for women. I mean, women have historically been oppressed. And so women suffrage and women coming out of women couldn't vote at one time. Women could own their own children or own property. And so women, we talked about, there's historical record of what the rule of thumb means, about, men
Okay. You
women.
bring up a great point. Let me ask you this question again. You're holding this sense again. Among there's born of women, there's none more intelligent than thine self. And I'm flattered that you even deem me worthy to be on the same airways with you. So I'm trebly honored to be this close to you. But answer me this then, and let's talk about this issue of controlling of one's body. Does the government have the right to take your 5-year-old kid from you because your kid comes home one day who's a boy and says, "Mommy, I'm a girl and I want to have a surgery." And then in Dallas, the government, the parents said, "No, you're not. That's not happening." Social services came in and took the kid away from the family because they wouldn't cave into that radical transsexual agenda. They lost their kid. Now you talk about controlling one's body. That's an extension of what you're arguing. You're saying you, as a parent, and a mother, and a female should control what goes on your body. By extension, should that not apply to your kid? You raise the kid how you see fit?
I think you're talking about a case about a man and a woman divorcing, and the mother wants to usher the young boy into becoming transgender. The father is against it. They went to court. The court sided with the mother, and so CPS became involved. So, and there's several cases like that. The issue of a child sex reassignment or even encouraging young people to take these hormone pills or whatnot, I think is a very sensitive issue. Personally, I don't think that young children should be encouraged to change their bodies physically in order to be accepted. I don't think they have to change anything about themselves in order to feel whole and a part of the society that they are born into. I think we as human beings have to be more tolerant of one another and
Oh
also
no.
but we also got to recognize that there's something bigger happening here. There's financial motives behind pushing
Now we're
this.
talking.
There's also a research incentive. The medical community has a big stake. They want to experiment in this field. There's not a lot of data when it comes to gender reassignment surgeries. So it's really an unknown area. And so we have to be very, very careful as parents, communities, to what we allow anybody to do to our children, because we, as all of us have been children before. I know that when I was a young person, I'm not the same person I am today. My mind has changed a million times. And so I think young people deserve that opportunity to allow their minds to change a million times, because that's part of the growing up process. That's part of becoming an adult. We have such a small window to be children. And so to take that away from them or to jeopardize that for the sake of medical knowledge or medical experimenting or some sort of financial agenda, I think is very inhumane, and it's unfair because those are real people there. And I think what we need to talk about more is how do we deal with the issue of gender dysphoria? How do we deal with the issues of our young people changing and our society changing? We have to make room for these issues to resonate or to be dealt with in a healthy manner. The issue of bathrooms, should we have more bathrooms? Should a person who identifies as a woman, or a man go in certain bathrooms? I mean, there's so many issues, but we have to be tolerant of each other. And I don't support the medical community's incessant need to experiment on our young people. And I think also the social media element. I think a lot of parents are they want to have social media attention, and so they fall victim to this type of praise and adoration when you put your child in front of a camera and act and guide it to perform or manipulate the young person to act or say certain things. We see it all around us, and it's really detrimental to our society as a whole, and we have a lot of work to do. But persecuting them and fighting about the fact if they feel a certain way or not is not the solution. As we see, we've had several mass shootings back to back where they were committed by people who identified as trans and were angry at the
Okay,
way.
let me ask you this. Okay, you hit on something. Let's talk. Let's talk. Let's talk real, like we're on the street corner in the hood somewhere. Let's talk like Pookie and Rashida. Now, you said people who identify. What would you say right now if in the middle of this interview I said I identify as a Chinese person, and I expect you to refer to me as someone from China. And oh, by the way, I'm 7 foot tall too, and I want you to recognize me. Would you think I had a mental problem?
No, I wouldn't. But I know that you're making a mockery. But what I also know is that there are people who suffer in silence because they don't fit in what we deem as normal society. You know what I mean? And
But those are called mental. That's the clinical definition of psychosis.
but
When you got a penis on you and you tell me you're a girl and you want to get pregnant, are you crazy? Yes, you are.
but to persecute people and to create a space where there's no opportunity of understanding or healing, then we've already lost this debate, because we can't wish these people away. We can't pretend
They
they
have
don't.
mental issues. They need psychological treatment, not medicine. They don't need pills. They need a psychiatrist. They have a mental problem.
You don't think we should listen to them and hear what they're.
No, 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 no. Isn't it amazing? Are you aware of the history of how we got to this point? The American Psychological Association and the American Medical Association, it's only been in recent time that they removed transsexual and homosexuality from the mental list. And it wasn't because of new medical science discovery, it was political pressure. There's no scientific evidence to justify their change. This is a mental issue, and we need to get back to dealing with the mental side of this. And that's why all these shootings who are happened by transsexual people, or I refer to them as people with mental issues, they need to be dealt with clinically because they are the walking definition of psychotic. When you think you got a penis and you want to be a girl and think you can get pregnant, you are crazy.
What if you had a child that identified as a trans person or a member of the LGBTQ plus community? Would you be a little bit more sensitive to what they're
Nope.
going through? No,
Nope,
what?
nope. Let me tell you why. And I got tons of homosexual friends. You know, I got them in family. You know what I find a common thread that the media will never talk about? Almost without exception, when someone tells you they're homosexual, and definitely when they tell you they're transsexual, they have had some type of a trauma in their life, physical, emotional, spiritual. But there's something dramatic and traumatic that pushed a switch in them, and
Mhm.
that's when they crossed over that side. It's almost unheard of for you to meet a person in those categories without some type of trauma happening to them.
Right, which is why I think it's more detrimental if we as a society cause more trauma by rejecting them. I personally think that as women, we have to protect our spaces as women because we're
Oh
not,
wow.
I don't believe trans women are women. That's just the way I believe.
But
But
why
I
do you call them women then? Why do you call them women?
because it's about respect. If they want to
No,
be,
that's you're playing into their their mental illness. For example, if one of my nephews come in and say he's 15 years old, I'm giving him some basketball lessons. Do you think I'm going to let him for 1 minute try to tell me he's Shaquille O'Neal physically?
but that's different because you mentioned what your identity is so ingrained in who you are. Your identity is more than just pretending you're a character. Your identity is who you wake up with, who you go to bed with, who if
Okay,
you
let me ask you this. So if you got a boy who says he's a girl, are you going to believe that you're going to buy him some tampons as well? Are you going to go that far into playing this mental game with him?
it's not about playing the mental game. Again, I think it's about understanding and acceptance. And I think if we all want a better world where everybody feels good in it, surely we can make room to
But
allow.
don't you think it's a mockery of you as a female for a boy to just say verbally, I'm a girl, thinking that girl being a woman is just a matter of having anatomical features? There's more to womanhood than you just having the equipment. There's a lot of internal, emotional, and mental things that you just can't self-identify and make it so.
And I agree with you. That's part of my argument as well. I think that's why I don't identify as a cisgendered person. I'm a woman, and I want to protect that. But at the same time, I can protect my what it means to be a woman or what it even is that a woman is. I can protect that without being, unkind to somebody else. You know what I mean? I think there's room where if, but I think you're right. I think you do say something that's important and poignant is that we have to be honest about our biology. We have to be honest about what the scientists say because otherwise it creates a great confusion and discomfort amongst people, especially young people who, they have a very hard time dealing with this topic at such a young age. They deserve some grace to not have to deal with these types of heavy issues. That's just how I feel. It's such a difficult situation. I don't. I
Well, it's
sympathize.
not, no, it's not a difficult situation. Let me ask you this again, since among those born of women, there's none more intelligent than thine self. So again, I'm flattered to be able to sit at your feet because I truly know that the highest place on earth is at your feet.
Oh my lord, Raynard, you will be a regular guest.
But let me ask you this. So let's say you are hosting Thanksgiving dinner for the family.
Mhm.
Would you, because in my household, you are not being gay in my family and invited to the things ain't happening. Definitely not transsexual. But so you got a cousin that's part of your family,
Mhm.
and he's a known drug dealer. Everybody in the family know he sells drugs. Do you invite him under the guise that you got to be tolerant because he's part of the family, and if you leave him out, somehow you're going to hurt his feelings. So therefore, you're going to expose your younger nieces and nephews to a known family drug dealer under the guise that being you want to be tolerant.
No, I think that's a different issue. When there's a safety mechanism involved or safety issue involved, then you have to act accordingly. But trans people don't pose that danger. And what
Yes, no, that's not true. That is not. They are very dangerous to my impressionable nieces at 5, 10 years old. I don't want my family exposed to that idiocy because guess what? A kid at that year, 5, 10 years old, kids today don't even have a childhood. I remember my boy when Michael Jackson came out with this song, "Have you seen my childhood? I'm searching for that wondrous in my youth. Before you judge me, try hard to love me. I'm searching for the wondrous in my youth. Have you seen my childhood?" We don't let kids have childhoods anymore. We're talking about kids talking about mutilating their genitalia at 5 years old, and you got adults co-signing on that stuff. You got kids who can't go around out in the front yard or in the street and get dirty and get muddy like kids supposed to do. And yet you want to expose them to a trend and confuse the heck out of that kid? Really?
Yeah, it's a tough issue. We're part of it. We're seeing it play out on the show called I Am. You're familiar with I Am Jazz, but it's a young trans person who began transitioning, I believe, at the age of 4, and this was televised by it's a show, a big show about it. I think it might have been TLC that had long running. Well, now Jazz is a 20-something-year-old person. She's 23 or something like that, and she's having a very difficult time. And this is a reality show, and so you're watching her parents and her entire family, live this trans lifestyle that's being televised. And so you see the money, you see the propaganda, but you're also seeing the medical malpractice and the all the issues that are happening. This young person is truly suffering in front of our eyes. She's expressing that, and it seems like no one is listening. She wants to be normal so bad, but she's having a very, very difficult time, and there's a lot that goes into medically transitioning that requires a lot of upkeep. And so when you're hearing about these things, you truly feel sympathetic, and we should all be more concerned about our rush to change laws to allow parents to send their children under their knives because of this gender issue. So it's a tough issue. It really is. So we're seeing it play out, and I hope everything comes out. Raynard,
Let me ask you this. Okay, we got to go.
No, go ahead. No, you said you're going to ask me something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You hit on something, and as one of my good buddies would say, you almost stumbled into the truth, but you're incapable of stumbling properly. So let me help you stumble like you were beginning. You were stumbling in the right way. You just didn't get there 100%. So you said normal. That's the problem with all these subjects we're talking about today. In order to have, in my view, an intelligent conversation, which I think this has been one of those, at some point, do you not agree that you have to have what we call a baseline of what normal is and what the rules of the game are? For example, when I go play basketball, I know what the rules are. I don't show up on the basketball court with soccer equipment on. That doesn't match there. Or I don't go to the basketball court with a football uniform or American football. So what we have done is not only have we tried to, we're in the process of destroying the family unit, the nuclear family. We're redefining what it means to be a family. Susie can't have 2 mommies and Johnny can't have 2 daddies. I don't buy into that. And so since we don't have a baseline definition of normal, what's moral, what's right, or what's wrong, it's almost like the wild, wild west in every aspect of our life. You got people who were telling me, for example, Catholic friends of mine, they want to be a priest, but they want to be married. Well, no, you can't join the club called the Catholic Church as a priest if you're married. That goes against their bylaws.
They just changed.
I can't be a priest.
They just changed.
No, they have not changed it. There's been talk about the Pope wanting to, but that has to go through the College of Cardinals and the whole legislative process that
I
had. So
believe,
this has just been talk so far.
I
Yeah,
believe,
and
I believe
so
they did. I believe they did a couple of
no,
months ago. No, are you sure?
nope,
Okay. Thought I
nope.
read.
I'm positive. I'm positive. I'm not saying that I'm always right, but I'm never wrong. But I can't be a CPA without passing the CPA exam and having a 4-year degree in accounting. There are certain rules I have to meet in order to be a part of that club. And so today we have people saying, I want to be a Christian, but I'm not willing to change my behavior as a Christian. So I'm a drug dealer for Christ. I'm a prostitute for Christ. So just throw Christian on the front of your label and you don't have to give up anything. And so what we're saying is today, okay, we should be tolerant. But isn't it amazing? This is something I really want you to give me a great answer to, because you got to talk me off the ledge on this one. Why is it when I hear liberals and the homosexual community and the transsexual community talk about tolerance, why is it it's always a one-way street? Why do they not tolerate my Christian value and tell me that unless I give up my core moral values and principles as a Christian, I am homophobic, transphobic, dysphobic? Why is it that you can't be tolerant of my belief system? Why is it always a one-way street?
Well, I think part of it is your belief systems rejects them, and they, the Catholic Church says if you're gay, you're basically committing a sin, and that
Which
God,
you are?
well, but that is the structure of this particular belief, and so when it leaves one group out, there's bound to be a reaction. You can't just walk away and go, okay, you reject me, but yet it goes against even the whole teachings of Jesus Christ, where he accepts everybody, even lepers and hookers and
But
all.
he also told them they had to change their behavior to follow him. He said, pick up your cross and follow me. So stop drinking if that's your problem. Stop having sex with all these women if that's your issue, or with men. But in order to be a Christian, you have to change from your wicked way. Then I will hear your prayers and I will heal your land. But there's something we have to do in order to be able to receive what God and Christ is offering us. But today we're saying, I ain't giving up nothing, but I'm still going to be a part of your group.
And I think that's where we have a gray area, because I personally think it's about people wanting to feel good in the world, and we don't see eye to eye on what makes a person gay. The gay community think that they are born this way, and so it does contradict the teachings of Jesus Christ and any religion when these people are persecuted or deemed unwanted. They don't belong in the kingdom of God.
Why do you keep using the word persecuted? No one, listen, there is no persecution of homosexuals in this country. Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, that's a different conversation. No homosexual is persecuted in America. Zero.
But in general, and I am very careful about the word persecution, because as a Black person, I know the historical heaviness and the significance of that word when it comes to enslaved people. So I do use it very carefully. But they do feel persecuted. You do see it all around the world. And so I was speaking globally, that in all those countries that you do mention, even Uganda just now passed a law saying homosexuality is deemed illegal. And of course, they have a right to protect their own heritage, their
Values. Yep.
values. They have every right to do that. But it shouldn't silence the attempts for understanding. It shouldn't silence us to understand, to try to get to understand this phenomenon that's happening.
No, mon chéri amour. No. I'm not trying to understand why my cousin is selling drugs back home. I don't need to understand that. It's wrong.
But we're associating it to something nefarious. So being gay isn't nefarious,
It is. It's nefarious and wrong.
That's an opinion, and of course it can
No, and that's based on our culture, our societal values in America until the past 20 years when we went on this tirade to the left. And if you are a Christian, it's definitely wrong. And so you got people like T.D. Jakes who are trying to justify homosexuality within the church because he's too busy trying not to offend his friends in Hollywood. And I'm building new condos in hell for people like TD Jakes.
Well, you know, the only constant in life is change. And that even has to mean in the heart and the mind. You know, we've come a long way as human beings. Certainly, we can work to understand this phenomenon because gay people are real. You know, they do deserve to be heard and understood on a societal level because they're not going anywhere. So we might as well, you know, deal with this issue head on. But I do think one side has the right to say we do object to medically changing young people because that's really extreme. I think the other that space has to be there in order for us to protect our young people and to really try to understand this thing that we're still trying to understand, but it's not going anywhere. You know, it's not. You know,
Well, it can go somewhere if we as Americans start standing up for our traditional values. Guess what? The more you tolerate something, the more of it you're going to get. But when you and I were growing up, we didn't have to deal with issues like this because you knew, hey, mom and dad ain't playing this, school ain't playing that, the church ain't playing that. So hey, you may have thought about doing certain devious acts, but you said, no, that's wrong. See, having values or a conscience or a sense of right or wrong, it doesn't stop you from doing wrong.
mhm.
It prevents you from enjoying it. And that's the difference. That's when all the teachers from mom and dad, when you're a little bitty kid, is sitting up on your the little bird on your shoulder saying, you know that's wrong. And so that's what we got to get back to. Everybody now, see, we're going through this postmodern era, which happened again back in the 1800s, where man was the measure of all things. And so now you hear people like Oprah saying, everybody's their own God. And so thus you have people speaking like, I'm speaking my own truth. I'm living my authentic self. I'm living my authentic life. No, you don't own the truth. The truth is absolute. If I go on the top of this building and jump off, whether I believe in gravity or not, I'm falling. That's an absolute truth there. So you don't have your own individual truth when it comes to laws of gravity. No more so than you can say, well, my truth is, you know, I got a 2-year-old son, but yet I have a girlfriend that I'm living with. I'm like, you're confused as hell. That's your problem. So there are right and wrong absolutes. And what we're saying in today's society, not only in America, but globally, is that I am my own God and I make up my own rules. And if everybody has their own values and rules, then there are no values and rules. At a certain point, there's got to be a collective sense of here's the way we do things. And if you're, for example, on a basketball team, you can't have 5 shooting guards on the court at the same time. Doesn't work. You can't have 5 centers. Everybody has to know what their role is. And within that context, there are certain rules of engagement while you're playing basketball. But we're saying when it comes to values and morals, everybody can make up their own rule. You cannot have a functioning society under that paradigm.
Perhaps. But you know, even you know, I was going to say, even the Bible says that we are made in the image of God. So the Bible says that too. The Bible that I'm sure you hold dear as well, right? Would
Well,
you
I
not
don't
say?
know. I don't know. Do you know where I went to college at undergrad?
Well,
I graduated. I graduated from Oral Roberts University.
oh, okay, okay.
So you're talking my language. Let me tell you something. I hear people trying to put the Bible through pretzels to justify their beliefs. God has given us freedom of choice, not freedom from choice. Not making a choice is a choice in itself. And I'm amazed that the homosexual community now use the language because I'm finishing up my book on language,
Hmm.
and they say, well, you were assigned female at birth, or I was assigned male at birth. No, that was determined by God in the womb of my mother. Either I got an XX or XY chromosome. That's not subject to debate, and that's not subject to individual choice. Like in DC, on the birth certificate now, they have male, female, and other under the guise that when a kid is old enough, they can decide which gender they want to be. That's idiotic.
Yeah.
Totally insanity.
Well, yeah, we have a lot of gray area to understand because either way, we're headed towards a future that's going to be very different than our past, and we just have to learn how to coexist with one another. You know, you mentioned
No, you can't. You cannot coexist with these people.
we have to
Either,
coexist. No option.
either we're right or they're wrong, but it's not. Both of us can't be right. You
And you know,
cannot be.
and that's the problem with Republicans, Raynard. So thank you for bringing that to a head, because that's the problem with Republicans. They just refuse to meet us in the middle.
On certain principles, there is no middle ground. Either I pulled the trigger on the gun and shot you, or I didn't. There's no middle ground. I can't halfway pull the trigger, and then someone else comes along and further pulls it. Either I did it or I didn't. And so either you're male or you're female. Either you are a Christian or you're a sinner. I mean, ain't no neutral ground here. Either is one of the other, binary choice.
Yeah.
And we need to get back to that.
Well, you certainly make a very strong case for it, but I know
But what?
there's a lot of pushback. There's a lot of pushback. Even the White House is celebrating transgender women for International Women's Day. So our society is changing, whether we like it or not. You know,
No, the Democratic Party is changing. We're not. Society is not changing.